Hello everyone, and welcome to my talk, From Chaos to Clicks, Streamlining Deployments with Octopus Deploy. My name is Felix Notka, and I split my time equally as a DevOps engineer and a software developer at Sign IT in southern Germany. And although you can ask questions at any time, I will dedicate the last couple of minutes to answering your questions, but you can of course contact me afterwards at felix.notka@sign-it.de. And for those of you who are curious, I'd like to introduce you to my dog, Fred. He's a Labrador, he's 3, and he prefers not to be contacted. So let me tell you a bit more about the company I work for. Founded in 2011, we are a dedicated team of 26 employees committed to delivering innovative IT solutions. We specialize in developing custom software for our clients, handling every aspect from initial consulting to ongoing maintenance. And we've been using Octopus Deploy since 2012, which basically makes us early adopters. And as John said, of 2024, just a couple of weeks ago, we are proud to officially call ourselves Octopus Deploy partners. We have introduced Octopus Deploy to all our customers, offering a comprehensive range of services like trainings and workshops, consultation, installation, management, and maintenance. So basically the whole package, but you can find that on the website as well. This has given us plenty of experience and opportunities to learn from, allowing me to confidently share with you today what we have learned along the way. Over the next half hour, we will explore how we transition from a chaotic manual process back in 2012 to a streamlined automated workflow. We will delve into the challenges that we faced, the solutions we've implemented, and how this transformation has empowered everyone in our company, no matter the technical background, to deploy with ease. By the end of our time together, you will be equipped with the knowledge to transform chaotic manual deployments into efficient automated workflows, making deployments accessible to all members of your organization. So, where does it begin? Let me take you back to the year 2012. I was 15 at the time, and obviously not involved in the industry, but luckily my colleagues have been more than happy to fill me in and describe to me what a general manual deployment process looked like for most of the industry back then, which, to put it mildly, was chaotic. Deployments were an all-hands-on-deck affair. From 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., everyone was involved. Application developers, operations specialists, database admins, firewall experts, and even the managers. They operated off a multi-page execution plan meticulously laid out in Excel. And this plan included exact timestamps, step descriptions, responsible departments, and contact info for each team member, complete with phone numbers and email addresses. There was also a detailed fallback plan outlining specific time windows for error correction in case things didn't go as planned. And as an operations specialist, for example, you might do something at the very beginning and then wait around for hours before being needed again. The atmosphere was very tense, since any misstep could set the deployment back by hours or even days. Deployments could easily take up to 5 hours, stretching into the early morning and leaving everyone exhausted. And these deployments, they weren't frequent. They happened only once every few months. And this infrequency added to the stress because the procedures just weren't routine. Each time felt like starting from scratch, with team members having to relearn the complex steps involved. And this also meant that updates and improvements to applications were delayed, making it hard to respond quickly to client needs or market changes. Also, scheduling was another nightmare. Coordinating a change advisory board meeting required at least 2 weeks' notice to set a new date. And any delays or need for rescheduling meant pushing back critical update. This bureaucratic layer added friction to an already cumbersome process, making agility almost impossible. The manual deployments also left a lot of room for human error, since every step had to be executed precisely as outlined, and any deviation could cause significant issues. There was no guarantee that what worked in test environment would also work the same way in production. This inconsistency made it difficult to predict outcomes and eroded confidence in the deployment process. Knowledge was gatekept too. Critical information about the deployment process resided in the minds of a few key individuals that kept away from everyone else. If someone was unavailable due to illness or other commitments, the entire deployment could be jeopardized. There was no centralized system or documentation that could be easily accessed by anyone who needed it, creating risky dependencies. And the impact on morale was palpable. The stress of these deployments weighed heavily on everyone involved. Developers felt disconnected from the process, operation teams were overburdened, and managers were anxious about potential downtime or client satisfaction. And all of that was quite a challenge to put up with back in the day. But what's even worse is that despite the advancements in automation tools and best practices, many organizations still continue to rely on manual deployments. According to the latest State of DevOps report from 2024, companies fall into different categories based on their DevOps maturity and deployment practices. Elite performers, here in blue, about 19% of the respondents deploy on demand multiple times a day with less than a 5% failure rate and recovery times under an hour. In most cases and most projects, we fall into that category. However, lead time may sometimes be an issue. High performance, the green ones, about 22%, deploy between once per day and once per week with a 20% failure rate and recovery times under a day. Medium performers, biggest ones, 35%, deploy between once per week and once per month with a 10% failure rate and recovery times under a day. Low performers, 25%, deploy as infrequently as once per month to every 6 months with a 40% failure rate and recovery times stretching between a week to a month. And what's particularly alarming is that low performers, who make up a quarter of all respondents, are likely to depend heavily still on manual processes. These organizations seem to deploy changes infrequently and face significant risks in downtime, reflecting the ongoing reliance on outdated methods. Often this reluctance to adopt automation stems from the perceived complexity of overhauling legacy systems, even though modern tools could drastically improve their deployment frequency and reliability. So now that we've covered the general deployment process, let me illustrate how we handle deployments here at that time at Cyan IT. Our deployment and development processes were a blend of manual steps and partial automations. We utilized Team City for continuous integration, which helped to automate some of the aspects of the build process. Our code was stored in an SVN repository, serving as our version control system. And when it came to database migrations, the process was a bit less streamlined. We relied heavily on manual crafted SQL scripts for database changes, and unfortunately, these migrations were not automated. This manual approach often led to inconsistencies across different environments and made tracking changes much more challenging. As developers, once we completed our coding task, we would then build the application locally and create a zip file of the compiled code. And this file was then uploaded to an FTP server and passed along to the operations team, along with a list of semi-clear instructions on what they needed to do. Fully aware that the operations team knew next to nothing about the application code changes being deployed. And for us, that was basically the end of the deployment process. We had minimal involvement beyond that point and would just often wait for feedback. If any issues arose, like an error that wasn't properly logged, we might not hear about it until much later, making troubleshooting so much more difficult. Understanding the infrastructure was also a challenge. Since our role focused solely on development, we didn't have clear visibility into the infrastructure or hardware landscape. There was no scripting automation using custom tools, because implementing such scripts would have required developers to have access to servers, passwords, or other sensitive information. And if we wanted to go an alternate route, we would have needed to run complex commands with an overwhelming number of parameters, which just wasn't very practical. And as I said, another significant hurdle was that database migrations were not part of our code base and were not reviewed alongside our application code. This separation meant that changes to the database weren't synchronized, which led to potential conflicts and errors during runtime. So how did we recognize the need for change? Well, basically everything began when my colleague Philip joined the operation. Philip wore multiple hats. He was involved in both software development and operations. This meant that he was on the receiving end of the zip files that the developers handed off, and he was fully aware of the challenges that came with this manual process. Coming from a larger company that had partially automated its deployments using tools like Capusano, Philip quickly realized the inefficiencies and risks inherent in our approach at that time. He promptly set out to find a better solution, aiming to tackle several critical issues we were facing. We wanted to deploy to multiple servers automatically, since manually, it not only took time, but also led to discrepancies between environments. We needed a solution to automate this process and ensure consistency across all instances. We wanted to include database migrations directly within our code repository, and by doing so, they would be version controlled and reviewed alongside the application code, ensuring that schema updates were synchronized with application deployments and just reducing the risk of runtime errors. We also wanted a centralized dashboard because we were essentially blind to the state of our deployments. Knowing what was deployed, where, and its current status was a constant struggle. A unified view of our deployment landscape was critical for improving transparency and fostering collaboration. This also meant that any error that came up during the deployment was now visible for application developers, which would just make debugging so much easier. Managing sensitive information like database passwords was a significant concern. We needed a secure place to store and handle these credentials to prevent hard coding them into scripts or exposing them during the deployment process. So, quite fortunately, the first tool Philip explored was Octopus Deploy, and it quickly became clear that it was the perfect fit for our team. We chose Octopus Deploy for several compelling reasons, which I'd like to share with you. First, it offered predefined deployment steps. Features like the IIS deployment step allowed us to simplify complex tasks without writing custom scripts from scratch. This meant we could get up and running quickly, reducing our setup time. Second, the variable management and substitution capabilities were a game changer. We were able to eliminate hard-coded values in our code by externalizing configurations. This meant our applications were more flexible and much easier to maintain, as we could easily manage environment-specific settings. Third, Octopus provided a direct overview of our environments through an intuitive dashboard. We gained immediate insights into what was deployed and where, which improved our planning and reduced deployment conflicts. This visibility was something that we just hadn't experienced before. Additionally, the tool's ability to expand functionality with custom steps meant that we could tailor it to fit our unique requirements. As our needs evolved, Octopus scaled with us, accommodating more complex deployment scenarios without a hitch. The role-based access control was another significant advantage. We could assign specific permissions to team members, ensuring that only authorized personnel could perform certain actions. This enhanced security and also allowed us to involve non-technical staff in the deployment process safely. I'll show you later some examples of that. Moreover, having a clearly defined deployment process with detailed logs brought transparency to our workflow. It made it easier for everyone to understand the deployment pipeline, and the detailed logs were invaluable when addressing errors, reducing downtime and frustration. Lastly, the secure management of sensitive data was crucial for us. Octopus Deploy's secure variable management ensured that sensitive information, like database passwords, was handled safely. By avoiding hard-coded credentials, we adhered to best practices. In summary, Octopus Deploy checked all the boxes for what we were seeking in a deployment solution. It addressed our critical needs for automation, consistency, security, and transparency. The combination of predefined steps, the variable management, and the handling of secure sensitive data made it an indispensable tool that transformed our deployment process, and it still is. Implementing Octopus Deploy then marked the beginning of a significant transformation in how we approach deployments. And as I told you before, it was literally the first tool we tried, and we've been happy with our choice ever since. So let me walk you through a bit about the process that we encountered while migrating to Octopus. Initially, we started small. Our first step was to set up Octopus Deploy to handle the deployment of one of our less critical applications. This allowed us to experiment and understand how Octopus worked without risking major disruptions. At the beginning, deployments involved manually uploading files through Octopus Deploy. This was a significant improvement on our previous step, but it still required some manual effort. We configured Octopus to deploy an application to a test environment. Leveraging the built-in steps for deploying to IIS and handle variable substitution, we also built a demo process to showcase how Octopus Deploy could streamline our workflow. As we grew more comfortable with Octopus, we began to expand its use to other applications and environments. Over time, we automated more steps, handled additional scenarios, making our deployments much more robust and had reducing the potential for human error. We created standardized deployment processes that could be reused across different applications. And these projects included steps for building the application, using our continuous integration server to build them, and then package them into NuGet packages and pushing them to Octopus. Also including Fluent Migrator to ensure database schema changes were version controlled and deployed in sync with our application code. Automating deployments to various environments such as development, testing, staging, and production. By integrating our deployment process directly within our code repository and build server, we achieved some sort of a seamless workflow. Whenever code was checked into the repository, our pipeline would automatically build the application, run unit tests, package it, and push it to Octopus Deploy. Octopus would then handle the deployment to the appropriate environment based on the branch or tag in the repository. Again, I'll show you that later. And with the use of project scope lifecycles and release channels, we could fully control the deployment process. For instance, an artifact from a feature branch could only be deployed to a test environment. A commit to the development branch would automatically deploy to the test environment, while only commits in our release or main branch were allowed to progress through staging into production. We had many hard-coded fallbacks in our code, which made maintenance very difficult. By using Octopus Deploy's variable management, we externalized these configurations, making our applications more flexible and easier to manage. Managing different configurations for each environment became much simpler and less error-prone. We no longer had to manually change configuration files, reducing mistakes such as deploying with incorrect settings. Integrating database migrations was another significant improvement. This synchronization reduced runtime errors and improved the reliability of our deployments. Automated deployments ensured that the same process was followed every time, eliminating inconsistencies that could arise from manual interventions. This significantly reduced errors and made our deployment much more reliability. Now for the sort of advanced stuff. From the developer's perspective, this transformation was eye-opening. We became more involved in the deployment process. Instead of just handing off zip files or writing deployment instructions for the operations team, we now had better visibility and could contribute to improving the deployment pipeline. One of the most transformative aspects of our journey was empowering non-technical personnel to manage deployments. With Octopus Deploy's user interface and automation of complex steps, team members without a deep technical background could initiate and monitor deployments. For example, our customers' quality assurance teams often need to test new features before they merge into the development branch. Before implementing Octopus Deploy, testers would have waited for developers to manually deploy feature branches to their test servers, something that almost, I think, no one would do. But after integrating Octopus Deploy and providing a brief 15-minute training session, these QA teams could deploy feature branches to the dedicated test service themselves. This autonomy allowed them to test new features more promptly, providing a valuable feedback earlier in the development cycle. And as a result, we experienced fewer issues after the deployments since everything was thoroughly tested before merging. The transparency and visibility offered by Octopus improved collaboration between development and operations. We could easily communicate about deployment statuses and address issues promptly. The centralized dashboard allowed us to monitor deployments in real time, seeing which versions were deployed to which environments, helping us plan our work more effectively. We also leveraged Octopus Deploy scripting capabilities to handle custom deployment steps when needed. For example, we could run PowerShell scripts to perform specific tasks before or after deployment steps, such as clearing caches or performing custom application-specific health checks. We recognized that certain maintenance and operational tasks were repetitive and time-consuming. To tackle this, we implemented runbooks within Octopus Deploy. By automating tasks like server maintenance or restoring test databases, we significantly reduced the manual effort required. And this automation also enabled team members, even those without deep technical expertise, to perform these tasks effortlessly, ensuring consistency and freeing valuable time. To further enhance our deployment efficiency, we developed custom step templates tailored to our most common deployment scenarios. These templates streamlined the setup of new projects by providing reusable components that ensured consistency across different deployments. By using custom step templates, we minimized configuration errors and accelerated the deployment process, allowing us to maintain high standards of quality while deploying new projects swiftly and reliably. Effective communication with our stakeholders, including customers and partners, was another critical area of focus. We automated the email notifications to Octopus to keep stakeholders informed about the status of deployments. These notifications provided timely updates on deployment, progress, successes, and any issues that arose, ensuring transparency throughout the project. By proactively communicating deployment statuses, we improved customer relations, built trust, and enhanced overall satisfaction by keeping all stakeholders informed and engaged. The proactive communication approach ensured, Now, after I told you about the transformation we took and how that went down, we kind of developed some best practices and some pitfalls that would be best to avoid. The first pitfall, different ideas of success. The problem was when we decided to transition from our existing deployment tools like Capistrano to Octopus Deploy, we encountered a significant challenge. Various teams had different ideas about the ideal deployment process. This lack of a unified goal led to confusion and inefficiency, making it difficult to migrate our existing scripts and processes without a clear objective. The solution is actually quite easy: align the team on deployment goals. We focused on aligning the team, and we facilitated discussions to unify expectations and objectives, mapping out our current process and collectively identifying pain points. By defining what success looked like with a new deployment system, we ensured that everyone was on the same page. This shared understanding guided our implementation, helping us avoid unnecessary complications and ensuring a smoother transition. An example of what we did wrong before we had to find that out the hard way comes in our next pitfall, the all-or-nothing approach. In our eagerness to leverage Octopus Deploy, we initially tried to replicate our entire existing process within it without making significant changes. This all-or-nothing approach meant deploying whole gigantic applications even when only small parts had changed, leading to inefficiencies and not providing the expected gains in deployment speed and reliability. The solution here is to break down the deployments into reusable components. By breaking them down into smaller components, we could deploy only what had changed, significantly improving efficiency, and utilizing Octopus Deploy's features like lifecycles and variable sets allowed us to manage different deployment scenarios effectively. Additionally, creating custom step templates for similar projects ensured consistency and reduced configuration errors, enabling us to deploy more flexibly and reliably. Now to pitfall number 3, customization overload. As our deployment needs evolved, we began developing custom deployment scripts within Octopus Deploy to address unique requirements not covered by the built-in steps and templates at that time. While customization was necessary, it led to added complexity in our deployment process, making it harder to maintain and increasing the learning curve for new team members. The solution is here to find some sort of middle ground. Customize when necessary, but keep it simple. We adopted a balanced approach to customization. We leveraged Octopus's built-in features and extended them only when necessary, avoiding overcomplicating the deployment process. This strategy ensured that our deployment workflows remained maintainable and straightforward. By keeping customization simple and purposeful, we reduced complexity and made it easier for new team members to understand and contribute to the deployment process. The next one, expectation management. With a vast array of features and possibility within Octopus Deploy, it was easy to get sidetracked by trying to implement everything at once. This happened to me the first time I implemented an Octopus project as well. It's just way too powerful and too capable, so it's quite easy to get sidetracked. So additionally, managing deployments across multiple tenants, each with their own specific needs, added to the complexity. This led to changes in setting realistic goals and prioritizing features, causing frustration among team members and stakeholders. The solution here is also quite simple, but hard to keep sometimes. Set realistic goals and add functionality over time. We focused on setting realistic goals and prioritizing features that delivered the most value in the short term. By communicating openly with our team and stakeholders about what could be achieved immediately versus what would be implemented later, we managed expectations effectively. Utilizing Octopus Deploy's multi-tenant deployment capabilities allowed us to handle different client requirements effectively without overwhelming the system. And this phased approach ensured steady progress and maintained team morale. The last pitfall is constant change chaos. One of our primary goals was to establish a deployment process that didn't require frequent adjustments. However, we found ourselves making constant changes to the deployment pipeline, which introduced instability and confusion among team members. This constant change chaos disrupted workflows and made it difficult to maintain a stable and reliable deployment process. The solution here is to design for long-term stability. To achieve that long-term stability, we designed our deployment process with consistency in mind. We avoided making unnecessary changes that could disrupt workflows and focused on iterating and improving only when essential. Thorough documentation of what had changed ensured that everyone understood the deployment pipeline, and we kept the team informed about any updates. By prioritizing stability over frequent adjustment, we created a reliable and predictable deployment environment that supported our ongoing operations effectively. That being said, I'd now like to share a practical demonstration that my colleague Anita and I prepared, since I cannot show actual customer data. But this example is taken out of a real project that we have, and we thought we'd share something with you in hopes that you also find it as cool as we do. So we got an application that's called the demo observability. It's actually quite easy to explain, but not really necessary here. You click a button and then you can provoke an error that comes up and that we can log. It has different environments. This is the production environment. This one right here is the staging environment, and this is the test environment. So far, so good. And we keep track of issues via GitHub. So let's say I have a ticket here that says update UI to show in ship talk. I've pre-built this so that we wouldn't have to wait. And it went through all the different channels. It here went to the development channel because it's a feature branch. And we can actually just deploy it really quick here. So now what we can see is if we said OBS minus feature 8, oops, is it an 8? Yes, it is an 8. Got testing stuff site. There's nothing here. If we, however, wait until this deployment finishes, I can spoil it to you in the process already. We actually go into DigitalOcean where the domain is hosted, and we create a custom DNS entry along with custom namespaces, just so that you can test crucial or updates before you ever review them, or after you review them, to ensure that the expected feature works. Now let's see where the deployment process is. It seems to take another few seconds, but we should be good to go. Come on. Okay. Let's just wait for another few seconds before this is ready. But hopefully should be now. Okay. Okay, if that doesn't want to work, I can show you just another feature, and we'll get to that soon. That one just before to test. This DNS entry didn't exist before. It was all created by our script. And should hopefully be a bit faster. Hey, come on. But yeah, here you can see our channels that we have along with the custom lifecycles. The development channel only can deploy to development through the lifecycle. Our main channel needs to go through test staging to production. Release channel, I did not create a release package yet. And the test channel is for any update that's been done to the development branch, so that we always have a semi-stable development version deployed on our test system. And I really want to show that now, but somehow it takes a bit longer now than it did before, which is a shame because we have tried it many times today and it never took that long. That's just a warning in the Ingress controller Nginx. But yeah, then I need to show it on this example, which is clearly a shame. Okay, sorry. But to go back to the talk. To conclude, Octopus Deploy has truly transformed the way we operate at SignIT. We've achieved a consistent and reliable deployments with automated processes that significantly reduce errors and discrepancies. By integrating database migrations, we've synchronized our applications and database changes, minimizing runtime issues and enhancing overall stability. As we come to the end of our journey from chaos to clicks, I hope you've gained valuable insights into transforming your deployment processes can revolutionize the way your organization operates. Our experience at SignIT illustrates not just a change in tools, but a cultural deployment shift that empowered our entire team. Sorry. Correct. I'd like to thank my colleagues for supporting me and for all the wonderful people working at Octopus Deploy, allowing me to share our story here.